a lot of sellers say, I don't care lah, whatever data it is, this is my price, right? Some sellers are like that.
We have this seller.
Yes. Correct. Hello everyone and welcome back to Connecting the Dots, where we unravel the complexities of real estate in Malaysia. I'm your co-host Joanne, and Jonathan is here with me as well. We'll be diving deep into a topic that every property seller needs to know, which is the art of pricing strategy.
That's right. My name is Jonathan, and today very happy to talk about this topic. And this is a very important topic at the buyer's market right now.
What do you mean by the buyer's market? Straight away, there's a jargon that we need to know.
Of course, because that's what we are experiencing right now at this moment. And over the last few months, we've been having this kind of conversation with the seller.
Correct.
And navigate the challenges at this moment.
Okay, I think just for the audience's sake, buyer's market in our real estate lingo means that the supply is more than demands in the market. Am I right?
That's correct.
Anything else to add about?
Now, it also means that because of supply is more than demands, the buyer are spoiled by choices.
That's right.
So they have more options. They can take their sweeps time. So when there's a buyer's market, so it also means that the motivation change.
Okay.
Yep. The transaction also change.
That's
so
right.
Therefore, our strategy also need to change.
Yes, correct. And maybe we can start off with just letting all of us know that the reason why we think that getting the price right if you want to sell a property is so important is because not only that we are in a buyer's market, even if you're in a seller's market, same thing, pricing strategy also matters, right? So I think the common thoughts nowadays is the sellers will always say, hey, I'm the seller, I'm the owner of this property. Who cares about strategy? I would be the one that is determining the value, whatever I say my house worth 1 million means 1 million. I think that is a very common perception of sellers. They think that they have put in a lot of money, sweat and tears into building a house, and then when they want to sell, they would feel that they should be the one determining the price. But actually there's more layers to it. Am I right, John?
Yeah, in realities, we can't just price the property based on how we feel about it. I think it also depends on the market conditions, right? So if someone price the property based on how they feel, you're not selling the property.
Correct. Then why is it matter? Like, for example, why I asked that question is, how do we even know what is the right selling price? And like, how do we get that facts right? Even if today I'm very objective, I really need to sell my property, where do I start in terms of setting the price?
Right, so maybe just share your experience. There are two types of seller right now at this moment. Number one, they will tell you that I don't know the market price. Can you check for me?
Yeah.
The other one, they will come and tell you that I want to sell the property at this price. Please go ahead and sell.
Correct.
So let's talk about the first type of sellers. So when the seller say, hey, I actually don't know what is the market price, can you tell me? I think what we do is that number one, you must study your market. So I give an example like Taman Desa area, and the seller owns terrace houses, and the seller say, hey, what is the current market right now for this property, 2275 or 2280, the size. So what we do is that number one, we study the market, which is the past transaction. Okay, so that one gives us a very good indication. That's number one. Number two is the current market. So how do we do it is that we go to major property portals, iProperty, Property Guru, and see what are the similar houses, what is their asking price. So these are the two things that we will check. And what do you think, Joanne?
Yeah, I think to also add on, just to let our listeners to understand what does market value means. It really means three things that would define a market value. It's not really about what my neighbor is asking only. Sometimes if you talk about Taman Desa houses, the seller may want to sell a double-story terrace house, and then they will ask us, what's the market value? Sometimes when they ask us that question, what they really wanted to know is probably, what are the other sellers are asking? Yeah, so when they have that perception, it means that, other sellers are asking 1.5. Why are you telling me to price it at 1.4? But actually, the real definition, if I were to, so to speak, in the real estate context, we would take in not just 2 but 3 factors. Number 1 is past transaction, like what John said just now. Past transaction is very, very important. In fact, it's one of the most important data that we have to look at. Why? Is because then the market actually means that the price is set by the buyer. So it also means that, for example, the seller feels that the house worth 1.5, but honestly, in the general market, the buyers feels that it only worth 1.3.
Or they are willing to pay 1.3.
Correct. Yeah, the market can only absorb at 1.3 lah.
That's correct.
You know, they won't think that 1.5, they would rather buy in Taman Tun, for example. It's a different location than Taman Desa. So that is one thing, past transaction. Number 2 is about the current market in a very general sense, but to put it specifically, is the current asking prices around the neighborhood. Okay, some may ask 1.4, some may ask 1.3, some may ask 1.2. Then we take a median, or rather the average price of all these houses in the market. And then the third thing that we will check is the bank valuation.
That's
right. I mean, of course, to get a cash buyer is the best ideal situation, but we all know that what we should always leverage. Why? Is because, you know, buying a property is actually acquiring an asset, and it's the only sort of investment that you can get loan, and why not go for it, right? So then the bank value would get their valuer to check the valuation of the house, and then that is basically the amount that the banks think that this house is worth. Then they will give you, I don't know, 70% of loan margin, 80% of loan margin, or 90%. So these are the 3 things we will generally educate our sellers when it comes to setting the right price. Do you have anything to add?
That's correct. Now, I also think that this conversation is also important. So when we talk to sellers, right, we say, hey, what's the price that you're looking at?
Right.
For example, the market price is only 1.2. And then for the similar condition, the seller want to put at 1.5, right? Then my next conversation is that actually, what's your goal? Do you really want to sell your house? So if the seller say, yes, I want to sell my house, right, then I will tell them what will happen if you price it at 1.5. So what will be the consequences? Now, if you're putting at 1.5, hoping somebody will pay above 300,000 valuations and hoping that person will come and buy, right, the chances is actually very low.
Correct.
How do I know is that we can study that in the past transaction?
That's right.
Because in the same area, for example, Taman Desa, we actually have a pool of buyers, right? People want to buy, they are. So because of the market change, right? So the buyer behavior also change. So you will see they are wait and see a little bit longer. So if you put 1.5, 2 things will happen. Number 1, your property sits on the market a little bit longer time, or probably very long time. Number 2 is that you make your neighbor looks cheap. For those people who are very clear that I want to sell my property at 1.3 million, for example, it's a market price 1.2, 1.3 million. If you price it at 1.5, obviously people will say that, look at the same conditions. You know, one is 1.5, one is 1.2 or 1.3. Obviously, your competitor listing looks more attractive.
Correct.
Right?
That's right. And I think also pricing matters. Like what John said, the buyer's behavior has changed. And why is it important for us to observe the buying behavior is because I think with the amount of big data we have, and of course, according to our experiences while dealing with buyers, we do notice that this year, especially post-COVID, we came out of COVID 2 years already, and the buying behavior is completely different while during COVID, or 1 year during COVID, and now 2 years during COVID. We realized that a lot of listings are still in the market. Cheap ones, of course, they're all being grabbed and snapped in just a blink of an eye during COVID. And now those in the market is really going through price correction because they have priced incorrectly during COVID times. And we call it the leftovers. And while we are still having leftovers in the market, new listings are still coming in. You know, new sellers are still wanting to sell the property. So then the buyers will have so many more other options. Then of course, those listings that are sitting on the market longer than a new, then the buyer would lagi tekan the price lah, really press down the price because they already know that they have observing the market that, hey, this property is in there for 3 years, can't even sell during COVID. After that, 1 year later cannot sell, and now it's the second year. Obviously, if they want to go and buy your property, they would press down the price lah.
Understand.
Yeah, so that's the buying behavior that we observe. And I think if we do not start by pricing our property correctly in the beginning, the consequences is not just about the time, but it's also the impression of the buyer, and that will determine the final purchase or final agreed price. It will probably be lower, much lower than what you expected lah.
Correct. So just want to add on is that, so during this soft market right now, right? So what are the listing that is moving? What are property that's moving? Now, based on our observation, really pick an example in Taman Desa. Based on the observation, the property that is good condition, priced correctly, will move a lot faster. So I can give an example, like one of the property in Phuket Desa here. We've been trying to sell this property at 1.28 million.
Yeah.
All right. So this buyer came and make an offer at 1.1,
Yes.
and then make an offer at 1.18, and then the seller didn't take it. Right. So why the buyer didn't want to go put a lot higher offer? Because the buyer is thinking about a few things. Number one is the renovation cost, because it's a basic conditions, right? Number two is that because of renovation costs increase a lot higher, it actually affect the decision making. So 2 months later, there was a new listing coming on the market. The condition is a lot better. It's extended, it's renovated, and when you move in, you don't need to spend so much money, right?
Yep.
And the buyer pay for 1.4 million.
Yes.
And so it calculates. So if you buy 1.18 and then spend 300,000-400,000 to renovate, right? So it's still above the add up together is about 1.4, 1.5 already.
Yeah.
So this property came out renovated, extended, move-in condition, and 1.4. He just go ahead and pay.
Yeah.
So we see a property who has a better condition and priced correctly. These are the property that's moving right now at this moment.
And I think the other reason why buyers nowadays are willing to pay more for renovated moving condition houses is because everything can be financed by the bank. But if, let's say, I'm buying a property at 1.2 million and I take a loan, 90% loan, on top of that, I have to fork out cash. You know, nowadays, renovation, we all know that the cost of materials have gone up.
Yeah.
And this sum of money is expected to be paid via cash because the bank would not even finance renovation costs into your financing. They will only finance the cost of the house. So these are all factors that the buyers would think about and calculate that, hey, yes, it's more expensive, 200,000 more expensive, but why not? Because I'm paying installment anyway for the house, right? So they don't need to fork out so much upfront.
That's correct. That's correct. So you will see a lot more basic rundown conditions. If you don't price it correctly, your property will be still on the market. So that's the observation that we see for buyer behavior right now.
Yes.
They prefer more renovated condition, a little bit slightly better condition. So these are the property we move.
So then what if today I'm a seller and my house is really, it's a basic condition, then what should I do? Does it mean that I can't sell? My house, nobody will want it. What do you think, John? Like today, if let's say literally my house is not really very renovated. Yes, it's very properly well maintained because I'm still staying in it. But if compared to like a modern design, ID design, does it mean that my house forever cannot be sold?
Correct. So then it's always about pricing already, right? Right? It's always about pricing. Every property can be sold in Taman Desa, 100%. So mark my words, every property in Taman Desa, terrace houses, can be sold. It's all about pricing. So assuming that today you have a basic house in Taman Desa and you want to sell, right? Then we have to look at what is the pricing that we are listing it right now.
Yeah.
Again, if you price out of market, so what will happen if you price out of market?
Yeah.
You gotta wait lah.
Yeah.
So if you price in the market, then you attract attention.
Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit about the prices in Taman Desa. Basic and renovated, what is the price that they're talking about?
In Taman Desa is very interesting. Why we keep mentioning about Taman Desa is because Taman Desa is one of our focus area that we do business in. And I think Taman Desa is a very unique location is because truly we hear the residents here says that Taman Desa is only at the freehold side of Taman Desa. Whatever that's leasehold is not considered Taman Desa, right? It's considered Taman Bukit Desa or Danau Desa or things like that. Then we find that very unique is because it's literally in Taman Desa. Google Maps says you are Taman Desa. but yet there is a distinction when it comes to how the residents perceive. So this will also affect the prices. So the leasehold side of Taman Desa probably may not be able to fetch as high as the freehold ones. So the leasehold ones is probably at about 1.2 million for a basic house. Maybe slightly lower than 1.2 if you are in an unfavorable location. What I mean by unfavorable, for example, you probably face a T-junction, or you're next to a high tension cable, or you're next to, I don't know, something that is generally unfavorable. But
Next to the new development
that's
going on.
That's right, things like that. And I think these are things that we can't control, right? These are things that really you can't be just moving up your house, uproot the house and plant it to another plot of land that's more favorable. So I think, like what John said, I really like that. Actually, every houses in Malaysia can be sold. Not just Taman Desa, I believe every house can be sold. Why? It's because ultimately housing is a necessity, right, for human beings. And it's, if let's say you have unfavorable features that you cannot control, the only thing you can control is price, right? I would argue that even condition you can control. You know, some sellers even ask us, hey, is it worth it if I pump in, 30 to 50,000 just to spruce up the place, repaint the exterior, put up some new lights, make it brighter, repaint, declutter and everything. Does it help in the selling? 100% yes. Of course,
agree.
If you make your house as presentable as possible, the condition is really what will attract the buyer. They will forget whatever unfavorable feature of the house exterior, right? And then they were willing to pay. So I think probably one of the things you can't really control about your property is the location.
And the price and the condition you can control, actually.
Exactly.
You can improve the conditions or you can adjust the price. These are the strategy that we talk about to move the property ahead.
Yeah. And I also feel that I think some listeners may argue that, hey, I don't need to move it as fast as you want. Some sellers will be like, hey, take your time, I know real estate agents very busy one. So you take your time lah in selling my house. I'm not in a rush. Right? Yeah.
Correct.
So how do we normally handle this kind of seller?
Yeah, the way we deliver... I remember you just reminded me about one of the property that we sold in OUG area. Okay, and we sold it within a month.
Correct.
And the seller was very shocked. So because we can bring the offer so fast and sold it within a month, right?
Yeah.
And the seller was thinking maybe want to increase the price.
Yes.
But if the seller increase the price, I would think that likely they will make a mistake. Reason because we price it correctly and we use effective marketing solutions. Therefore, we capture the buyer and the offer was just very nice.
Yeah.
But I think it is also very important for us to really understand the seller timelines.
Yeah.
Maybe number one, maybe they really don't want to sell so fast because they probably want to move to a second house. They need a bit of time to adjust, like one of the property that you have in Damansara Heights, right?
Correct. So I think there are a few ways to handle time transition. I think most of the sellers, when they call us or when they engage us to tell us that, hey, they want to sell, we know they actually want to sell. Timeline, right, can always be compensated or can be adjusted by other methods. So why do I say that is, for example, if let's say really the property got sold faster or sooner than you think, you could always propose to the new buyer that you may want to rent the property back, for a couple of months so that you can prepare to move out. Or the other way is you can, even if you don't plan to rent back from the buyer, you could always strike a deal where the timeline of the transaction can be longer, because all these contracts are all private contracts. It all can be negotiated. There's no such thing. Yes, there's standard of 3+1 to hand over, but these are terms that can always be negotiated, right?
Can discuss during the negotiation. So one of the mistake for one of seller can make the mistake when they want to sell the property is that they want to price higher so that, to buy time.
Yes.
Actually, this create damage for the property,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think why we say it's create damage is if you're not ready to move out in the next 3 to 6 months, then our advice is always don't sell first, don't list it first. Once you list it out on the market, it means that there are going to be some eyeballs.
Yep.
There are going to be some exposure. Maybe it's not maximum exposure, but people knows, especially the residents around the neighborhood. Because once it's listed, when we say listed, it means that it is somehow marketed. It can be in portals, it can be in social media, it can also be word of mouth. All these are also marketing. So when it comes to, you already started to tell people, hey, I'm selling my house, let's not underestimate the power of word of mouth, right?
Yep.
All your neighbors may already know, people in the circle, your friends would know then, but you're not ready to move out. So if let's say that by the time that you're ready to move out and then you tell your agent, okay, I'm ready to move out now, now you can market it more aggressively, then it will defeat the front part already because everybody knows roughly what you want to price. And when you want to market aggressively and you did a price reduction, which means it also tells the market that, hey, you're willing to accept a lower price.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the same buyer who saw your property, for example, you price it at 4.8, and then after 4 or 6 months, then you price it at the market price.
Yeah.
The same buyer know it.
Yes, correct.
And then the same buyer will sense that, okay, this is the serious price right now. Go in and press the price a bit longer.
Correct.
So the situation is right now at this moment.
Yeah. So I think really, if you are thinking to sell, you need to be very sure that you would need to move out in the 3 to 6 months' time. If you are not mentally prepared or physically prepared or emotionally prepared to move out, right, then our advice is get that sorted out first, okay? And then you properly list it. Because I always feel that, especially Malaysians, we think that we always have the assumption that, the property won't be sold so fast. This is like a very common assumption. You think what? Sell fish, sell vegetable, right? Nobody will buy so quickly one. But they don't understand that buyers in the market right now, majority of them are already looking it for quite some time, or they already sort of started their property search journey.
Correct.
So this bunch of buyers have been observing, have been noticing new listing or old listings and whatnot. So when you price it incorrectly at the start, right? Even if you price it correctly at the start, you must expect that your house must be sold within 3 to 6 months because there are a pool of buyers there. They are just wait and see, and something comes up, good condition, priced correctly, they are willing to pay already because these buyers are already qualified, been filtering them, they already know their financing. It's easier to convince this buyer to buy your house rather than prospecting for brand new buyers lah.
That's correct. That's correct. So so that's the situation right now that we are having for landed segment at this moment. You just reminded me one of story that I remember so over the last 1 month, 2 months, we've been having this conversation with sellers that to reprice a property and come up with a different strategy. I remember one of the concern that the seller have is that they will say, hey John, when you price the property down, you are sending the wrong signal and message to the market. They will think that I am very desperate right now. Actually, the real situation is not because of desperate. When we price the property correctly, we are sending the message to the market that we are serious to sell. So there's no any sense of desperation. So it is also very important for sellers and agent work together and work on the strategy together and say the same message to the market.
Correct.
Now, one of the issue is that why seller want to put the price very, very high is because the seller appointed many different agents. And many different agents, they work very differently. Some, they just want to get a quick money. All right. Some, they sincerely want to help you, but because of the structure of the marketing like this, is a bit difficult because the buyer is only so limited.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So I think when we're talking about having many agents marketing your property, the danger of it is something that we need to highlight, and I think we will talk about it in the next episode when we talk about marketing strategy. But when it comes to this sense of desperation, I think this is what sellers are most how do I say it's really a standard line lah. Hey, I'm not desperate, I'm not in a rush, so please get a good price for my property.
Yeah.
I'm not desperate. What do you think about that? Why do sellers always like to say things like that?
And I always advise seller, if you're desperate, you don't sell the property. you really don't sell. You know, you shouldn't sell the property when you're desperate. You know, we understand that. I'm not too sure why the seller keep telling us. Not too sure, is it because they have bad experience and
yeah, could be, or it's a wrong assumption lah. Maybe in my opinion is where, because sellers would is always feel that you're taking money from the seller, like they can't get a good price and things like that. But if you look at selling a property as just an object, a project, right, then you would look at it very objectively. Why I say that is when objectively meaning you have all the data. And if you, today selling a property is not just based on plucking a figure from the air, it's really about going detailed, even by looking at transacted data, we need to be very selective and careful in selecting what is a correct data to look at. And not just like, oh, Taman Desa, double story, that's it. You know, we have to look into size, land size. We can look into orientation. We have to look into
condition.
Condition. Even the road. Some roads are more favorable. Some roads are not. Right? We have to look. We have to look into that particular row. Right? The houses behind is higher than you. So become not very favorable, and because it's not favorable, obviously the prices that the market willing to pay is not as high as the road behind you.
Right.
So I think when looking at transacted data, what I want to highlight is it has to be apple to apple product. We have to look into build up sizes as well, land size. We have to look at what's in front, what's behind, what's left, what's right. Then only when we compare to our own property, it's a more accurate one to set the right pricing lah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's
So
correct.
transacted data right now, we do have our own how do I say, database that we check, and it's very accurate. Why? Is because transacted data are figures that reported to our what is it called? Land office. Yes, our land office, because you have to declare your tax, you have to declare your SPA and all these things. So those prices are definitely more accurate than your competitor asking prices. Right?
That's the real market price. That's what the market is willing to pay.
Yeah.
You just reminded me about this seller that I just had this conversation with her at Bangsa. She's been trying to sell this bungalow house at Bukit Pantai for a longest time during COVID until right now. And one of the pain point that she has is that nobody advised her what to do. Right. So when I went there to sit down and I put up past transaction data, and I show her what is the past transaction data, the current market price, and the valuations. Now, the valuation right now is at 9 million. So she's been asking for 9 million market price.
Okay.
She's asking for 9 million for 3 years and still cannot get sold.
Yeah.
Then we need to analyze what is the real issue. Actually, the real issue is we do not have valuation issue. We have demand issue.
Yeah.
So when we look at the past transaction, in a year, there's only one transaction. And the transaction for a similar land size, 15,000 square feet, one sold for 6 million or 6 million or 7 million, but nothing at 9 million and above. Then we analyze a little bit deeper, then we realize that actually a lot of houses there, many people are downsizing. That's number one. Yeah. Number two is that actually many are inherited properties. So when it's inherited, right, it's free money for the next generation, and they just want to dispose it. So the seller need to understand what is the situation right now that he or she is in right now, so that we can plan and strategize to navigate the situations.
Yeah.
So if she really want to sell at 9 million, but the market right now cannot absorb it, right, then maybe change the strategy a little bit. So right now maybe can move to a rental market for 1 or 2 years, and then we reanalyze the market again and put it at the right time. So selling properties, sometimes timing also is important depending on what segment you are in.
Yeah, correct. I think there was recently we received a referral lead from a friend where she wants to dispose a townhouse in Bandar Mahkota Cheras, right? And then she was just telling me that she bought it at 600 over 1,000, and she is willing to sell it at 620,000, but currently she's asking all the agents that she knows to list it at 650,000. So it's a really fairly nice, very tastefully renovated townhouse from the photos, right? And it's a gated guarded area, strata title in Bandar Mahkota Cheras. And she's asking like, hey, how come so long still cannot be sold? You know, what's going on? So I briefly looked at data. I looked at the competitors market. I look at like how many townhouses are there in Mahkota Cheras. I realized one thing is townhouse in that area is the general market. It may not be gated guarded, but it's in Mahkota Cheras. Are only asking about 400 over 1,000. Yes, they may not be as luxurious as this seller's one, not tastefully renovated, but the size, the property type, location is similar. It's very similar. So then to get a buyer to pay 620,000 for a nice townhouse, not to say it's impossible, but like what John said, the issue is the demand issue. Because it's just not mature enough. How do I say? Buyers in that location, maybe the affordability to afford a 650,000 townhouse is not there yet.
The property segment
Correct.
is different.
Correct. They are willing to wait until, if let's say they have 650,000 today, they're more willing to buy a single story rather than a townhouse. So that is maybe is the reason. And so we advise that, hey, probably why not you look into rental? If you're not willing to sell below your SPA price, then I said that if you are not desperate, if you don't need to cash out, if you can still maintain the mortgage by putting it up for rent, why not? It's really not a big deal. Wait it out for 1 to 2 years and then reassess the situation again.
Correct.
Yeah.
So when we price a property, our goal is to sell in 3 to 6 months time.
That's right.
Anything that is more than 6 months, you will slowly damage the listing. You will slowly create damage to your property, and it will have more challenges to sell along the journey. So it is very important to price it correctly, and we need to price ahead the market. This is one of the concept that we are trying to understand. So how do we know ahead of the market is that we always look at what is the market condition right now. How is the performance right now? Are there many demands or there are lesser demand? So if in your market right now, you know that there are many more supply coming, for example, a property segment, townhouses, if there are many more townhouses coming out, your price will come down because the demand is not picking up. So if your goal is truly want to unlock the value of the property so that you can move on, right, price it correctly. So this conversation is very important between the seller and the agent so that we can come up with an effective strategy to move on.
Yeah.
So if your goal is like, I don't care, I just want to put a high price, somebody want to pay, we'll just pay. This is actually a wrong move and create damage for your house.
Yeah, correct. And I think when it comes to, again, the whole desperate thing, I'm not desperate or whatnot, right? Actually, if you're really desperate, your house would probably be in lelong already. You probably would not wait until you need to appoint an agent. You would have missed your mortgage and it's really distress, no choice, and then the bank foreclose your property. But if today you are thinking to achieve a goal by selling your property, that is not desperate. That is just something that you got to do to achieve your goal, whatever reason that is. Selling a property doesn't mean that you're poor. Selling a property doesn't mean that you need money. Selling a property is just like what you said, unlocking the value of the property and just disposing an asset. Because if let's say today you bought a house 30 years ago and today you want to sell, for sure you're not poor lah. You are just you're just tired of the property. You just want to sell it, get some cash, go travel. I don't know. There's so many objectives and goals that a person needs to sell a property.
Correct. Assuming maybe. Just assuming if today one of listener is a seller and is in desperate situation, it is very, very important who you appoint to represent you. Now, we will never tell our buyer that this is a desperate sale,
Yeah.
this is desperate sale, now you can press the seller. We'll never do that for seller
Yes.
because we're appointed by the seller to represent the seller to unlock the value.
That's
So
right.
if today, if you are having this situation and you appoint us, right, we really need to be very transparent and talk about it. And we 100% we have effective marketing plan
Yeah.
to sell your house. And
Yeah.
there will not be any sense of desperation in our marketing plan.
Yeah, I think because last episode I talked about why hiring agent is important and why hiring the right agent is even more important is because when you hire an agent that knows that you have a fiduciary duty towards the seller, it means that you owe a seller the highest duty of care, then you would do things ethically, you would do things to protect the seller's interest, regardless what the reason of selling lah. Our job here is to really to protect the seller's interest, to make sure that there's fairness in the deal, the right buyers come through. Marketing strategy is definitely the next episode that we're going to talk about, and pricing it correctly is something that we take it very, very seriously. So sometimes the owner would say, hey, you tell me the market value now. Then we are like, hey, we need some time, Even though we are in the market long enough, for example, just a location. But like I said, we need time to go and really study the unique features of your house. How do we position your house to fetch the highest value as possible as compared to your competitor? So we do need some time to do the market research and present you with a proper pricing strategy.
Correct.
And then you agree, we don't force you, right? You have a lot of sellers say, I don't care lah, whatever data it is, this is my price, right? Some sellers are like that.
We have this seller.
Yes. Correct. But then, so we don't just walk away. We would slowly nurture. One day, the sellers will understand what we presented is truly for the benefit of the seller lah.
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct. So what seller really need right now, especially in the soft market, and if you're having this pain point and trying to sell your house and still sitting on the market, I think what you really need is that you really need a professional advice about
Yeah.
the situation right now. That's
Yeah.
number one. Number two is that you really need to know the market knowledge. How's the buyer behaving right now?
Yeah.
Then of course, we always talk about the marketing strategy.
Yeah.
And most importantly, you need to appoint an agent who know how to negotiate deal for you.
That's right. Yep. If any of the listeners needs help in just knowing the correct pricing of your property, if you're thinking to sell, please feel free to reach out to us. We will do a thorough analysis for you, and there's really no obligation. If you just want to prepare to know, okay, if you are selling this year, how much would it be? If you're targeting to sell next year, how much would it be? We are more than happy to just assist you in getting the right pricing for you lah.
We also have a graph that if you price the property at this level, and then with the graph, we will show you that are you at the highest, you're at the most expensive one, or you're at middle one.
Yeah.
So that graph will help you to understand what are your competitors and how much they are asking.
Yeah.
So without us telling you what to price, right? Actually, seller will have self-discovery how much they want to price on the market.
Yes.
So that's what we do for you.
Correct. All right, that's about it for today's episode. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you so much, Joanne.
Yep, listeners, we hope that you found today's episode informative and helpful in your property selling journey. Hope to see you in the next one. Take
See you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.